Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, hi, my name is Carolyn, and in this video I'm going to be sharing with you all of my spring palettes. I shopped my stash and pulled out every palette I have that makes me think of spring and palettes I want to use this spring. So if that sounds interesting to you, then just keep on watching. I have 15 eyeshadow palettes to talk about in front of me. A few of these are pretty new to me and I've only used once, so I didn't really want to put them in like a top 5 category, even though I love them so far. I'm still not super familiar with them enough to put them in like a top 10 or top 5 kind of video. On my channel, I've previously done my top fall palettes and my top winter palettes, and I did those videos when we were first entering into that season. This video is going up a little bit later than what I would have liked to happen, but it's better late than never. So I hope that this video encourages you to shop your own stash and hopefully give you some inspiration for spring eyeshadow palettes that you want to play around with. But yeah, these are all of the palettes that I have that just make me think of spring in some way, and palettes that I want to use at least once this spring. So I'm just going to start off with the palettes that I've only used once that are new to me, and then I'm going to move on to palettes that I'm a bit more familiar with. So I'm just going to start off with the palette that I'm wearing today, and I love this eyeshadow look. It's one of my favorite looks I've done in a long time. So I did that with this look with the Ace Beauté Palettopoly palette. So yeah, this is the first time I'm wearing this palette, and it's also my first time. So this is my first Ace Beauté palette, and I got this palette based off of the recommendation of Caitlin House. She talks about this palette a lot. It was her favorite palette last year, and yeah, I wanted to try Ace Beauté, so I figured I would start with this one because this color story kind of spoke to me the most, and also Caitlin House talked about it so much, and I love her eyeshadow looks, so I figured I would try this out. And so I've only used her once, but I did really like it, and I had an easy time with the formula. Like, I didn't have any issues with applying this. And so for this look I'm wearing today, I used neon in my crease, shoulder pads on like my inner and outer corner, a little bit of digital pet kind of in the outer, a little bit more in the outer and inner corner, and Walkman as my center lid shade in my inner corner. But yeah, so this palette just makes me think of spring and summer, and you just get I know that it sort of looks intimidating and like a kind of a chaotic color story, but you do kind of get some columns that make it a little bit easier. Like, you have this pink row, you have this kind of like grungy yellow row, and you have this purple row, and then you have some neutrals here. And this row, like, I kind of wish there was another blue matte, but yeah, anyway, I'm so excited to play around with this more. I kind of just see this palette, and it inspires me. Like, can't wait to try out this yellow. And yeah, so if you have this palette, definitely pull it out for the spring. Next, I have the Cosmic Brushes Muse palette, and boy, I haven't tried anything else from Cosmic Brushes, but now I really want to get the Serenity palette, so this is another one I've only used once, but wow, it's gorgeous. And Stella wanted to be on my lap, so here she is. But yeah, so this is just as other people have kind of said that it's a grungy garden kind of thing, like a secret garden and kind of color story. And the formula on this is, so this color story is very unique to my collection, and the shades themselves are also very unique to my collection. I just don't have anything like this, and the formula is amazing. And when I first opened this palette, I actually like kind of gasped audibly because it's so pretty. It's even prettier in person than on camera. It's like the camera really doesn't do this palette justice. So yeah, I know that this palette is somewhat newer, and it's out of stock right now, but I don't think it's limited edition. If you are considering this eyeshadow palette, I do recommend it. It's stunning. I will definitely be using it more this spring. I think this is also kind of like a good year-round palette. I see definitely some fall looks. I see summer looks. I also see winter looks. So yeah, this is kind of seems like an all year round palette for me, but I definitely wanted to mention it in my spring palettes because I want to get more use out of it this spring. I can't wait to use it again. And I'm sorry if my dog Stella is making noise, if you can hear her, but yeah, this is just such a gorgeous palette. I highly recommend it. I can't wait to use it more. And then this next palette was sent to me by Deb, and it's the Natasha Denona Jubilee palette, and I feel like this is just the quintessential spring palette. Yeah, I did use it once, and I loved it. You know, it looks black, but it's a blue. Kind of like it's that color blue. And then you have this like pastel yellow and this kind of icy blue shade. And it's just such a pretty palette. Definitely, it's perfect for spring, so definitely want to use that more this spring. And then the last of my new palettes are the Odin's Eye collab palettes, the three collab palettes that they released earlier this year, and I'll just go through them really quickly because I'm sure you've seen them talked about a lot. But first we have the Lauren May Beauty Sea Talk palette, and oh my gosh, the packaging on this is just stunning. I just love it. And then the inside, oh, it just looks like, it does look like underwater. Just makes me think of the pool. You get this like really pretty pink and this teal minty shade. Perfect. Those are perfect for spring. And then the shade, I wore it as an inner corner highlight. Super pretty. As I said, I think I've already mentioned that I've only worn this once, but I did really like the look I did. I used kind of like this quad here and then this yellow chartreuse shade in my inner corner. It was so pretty. I cannot wait to use this palette more, and I think this will also be great for summertime as well. Yeah, I just can't wait to play with this more. So there's that one. And then we have the Flora Story palette with Makeup Just for Fun. And this one is like the plant themed one, so obviously it's perfect for spring. But honestly, this is seems like a great all year round palette as well. I can definitely see some fall looks with this palette, some winter looks. But yeah, so I just think this is great for spring as well. I wore it the time I wore it. I worked at the dentist office and I got complimented on my look by the dentist and the dental assistant. I was wearing like this shimmer shade and this row down here, these three shades, and then this in my inner corner. It was just such a pretty look. So yeah, you get your kind of great sagey green shades, and this kind of like cool toned greens and cool tone purples. I love that. So yeah, I'm definitely excited to use this more this spring. And then we have the Planet Spirit palette with Betty Jean. And that's what the inside of this looks like. This is definitely, these are not picking up great on camera, I don't think, but they're neon shades. And I did use this once, and I used these two shades here and Majestic on my lid, and these perform really well. Like for being neons, I didn't have any issues with these at all. Like, so I'm definitely excited to use this more. It does seem like maybe it would be good to pair with other palettes. Like I know of another palette that's coming up. Maybe it'll be the next one I mention that I feel like it would be really good to pair with. Because you are missing some like transition shades, and it might be a little bit challenging to come up with looks with this palette alone. But yeah, I think this is just it's like fruity and it's just perfect for spring, summer. So yeah, so the palette that I would pair it with, that I think would pair great with it, is the BH Lost in Los Angeles palette, because you've got your more pastel shades, which would make great transition shades for the Planet Spirit palette. So definitely try using them together if you have both of them, or just with another pastel palette, or obviously if you don't have these palettes, just shop your stash for similar color stories. But yeah, this is a perfect spring palette from an affordable brand. I don't know if they're bringing it back in stock. I know that this is from the BH, did I say it's BH Los in Los Angeles palette? They're from their BH's travel series. They have been bringing some palettes back, so you might be able to still get your hands on this. I love the BH formula. It's a top-notch formula. It's affordable. These pastels perform really well. They aren't chalky. So yeah, definitely it's a very spring palette for me. So I'm going to be using it this spring and probably pairing it with some of my other palettes that are kind of more summery. Another BH palette that actually pairs well with the Los Angeles palette is the Mimosa palette from their brunch collection. And yeah, I wish this had a little bit more orange in it, because it is Mimosa, but you would think it has more orange, but it's definitely like a pink, heavy pink coral palette. But it's so pretty, like on the eyes. I just love the looks I get with this palette. These shimmers in this palette are phenomenal. I highly recommend BH palettes if you haven't tried them. They were bought out by Makeup Revolution, and I haven't tried their newer palettes. But if you get these brunch palettes or the travel series palettes from there before they were bought out by Makeup Revolution, I can speak to those, and those are really good. But yeah, I can't speak to their newer palettes. Anyway, top-notch formula on this palette. Definitely sees a lot of spring, summer, again, looks with this. Yeah, I just love this palette. And then a couple ColourPop palettes. I have the Sprinkle a Little Magic Perfect Spring palette, if you have this palette. I will say on this one, the mattes aren't my favorite formula from ColourPop, or just in general. I got it for the packaging, and I'm keeping it around forever for the packaging, but but I love the color story on this, and the shimmers are really good, and I still like using this palette. I don't mind the mattes. I'm just mentioning that they aren't my favorite. But it's still a beautiful palette, and it screams spring to me, so I will be using it this spring. Love this color story, love this palette, so it's that one. And then another one from ColourPop is the All Hallows Eve palette, which kind of seems like a Halloween palette. But Gabriella Francis was talking about this in her spring palette video, which I'll have that linked below in case you're interested. But yeah, and I totally agree with her, because if you take out kind of like this little row here, it totally screams spring, you know? Because you have like some mid-tone, you have your orange and green and purple, and it's super user-friendly with the columns, or you can mix and match. And I used this a lot during like fall Halloween season, and I still feel like I didn't use it as much as I wanted to, because I just see so many looks with this palette. And I'm sorry for the reflective palette, packaging. But yeah, I just see so many looks with this palette. And then they have this new formula in this palette. Like, these are not pressed glitters. But they are almost like, they're not pressed glitters. They're eye safe, but they're almost like pressed glitters. They're just a really cool formula. I don't like pressed glitters, but I like these two shadows. They're kind of like a little bit of a chunky thing. You need a glue. I mean, sorry, I should have said this earlier, but I use a glitter primer for every shimmer that I wear. So I use the NYX glitter primer. It just makes it last all day without creasing for most of the formulas, most of my eyeshadow formulas, and it really helps to like kind of pack a punch. So I would probably recommend using a glitter primer for these two shimmers. But yeah, I definitely see some spring looks with this palette. I think it will be great in the summertime as well. It's just a fun palette. And then I have a couple more Odin's Eye palettes. So I have the Alva palette, which I also mentioned this in my winter eyeshadow palette video because it also is a good winter palette, but it's also a good spring palette because you have these like blushy tones and these like golden shimmery shades. And I almost decluttered this in my last declutter, but I decided not to, and I'm kind of glad I didn't, because yes, the shimmers are redundant, but they're very pretty, and this color story, just like the whole palette is just very pretty, and it does spark joy. So I decided to keep it, and yeah, I'm hoping to get a little bit more use out of it this spring. And then I don't feel like, if you're not new to my channel, you probably won't be surprised at all with this next one, but it's the Hello palette, and I feel like I kind of squeezed this into a lot of my palette videos because it is a favorite palette of mine. It used to be my favorite palette. With my new palettes, this might not be my favorite palette anymore, but I still love it. But this seems like perfect for spring because you have your pink shades here, you have a spring green color, and then you can do like a little bit of a grungier spring look, you know, because you have this, it's like an olivey green shade. It looks kind of gold on camera, but it's like an olivey green shade, and you have this pastel yellow, beautiful shade here, and then you have this double-sided, which is this really pretty multi-chrome, and it transforms a lot of shadows. And you have the shade River, which is a beautiful like purpley duochrome iridescent pinky shadow. I'm not really good at describing these colors. But yeah, I hope that you can see what I'm talking about. But yeah, I mean, I use this palette all year round because it is a favorite palette of mine, but I definitely want to use it again soon this spring. Yeah, definitely, if you have this palette, pull it out. And then this is another palette that I've already talked about in different seasonal makeup videos, but this is the Tiny Marbles palette. This is another kind of like year-round palette, but also perfect for spring because you have these kind of pastel shades with this mint green and this lavender shade and this kind of dusty lavender blush shade here. And then you have these coral shimmer, you have a coral shimmer, and this is such a pretty inner corner highlight. Scarab is such a pretty like blue brown, the shade. I feel like I can't use this palette without using that shade. This is a palette that I always feel like I want to use more than I do, but I love this palette. The formula of the mattes is perfection, but the shimmers I have a hard time with because I use a NYX glitter primer. As I said, I use that with every shimmer, but still sometimes they like disappear on me. So I've learned that I have to double prime my eyelids, and it's just kind of a finicky shimmer formula for me. It's not my favorite shimmer formula because it's not as long lasting, but when you apply it, it's gorgeous. It's a great shimmer formula when I first apply it, but just the longevity of it isn't my favorite. But I have gotten it to work with double priming my eyelids, where I put down the Milani eyeshadow primer first, kind of let that set. I kind of do my eyebrows or something else, and then I go back in with my Ulta Beauty matte eyeshadow primer, and that seems to help it last longer. Anyway, definitely perfect palette for spring. And then I have my last two, which I feel like pair well together. We have the Melt Gemini 2 palette, which is like blushy tones, and you have a little bit of grungy greens over here. But I feel like blushy tones go really well with springtime. I have only gotten to use this a couple times. This was sent to me from Christine Ann from the Bedazzled to Buddhist on YouTube. Which, thank you again. I'm so excited that I have this palette. I love Melt Cosmetics. I love their matte formula. Their shimmers, there's two in here. Not my favorite shimmer formula. They're fine. They're just very lackluster compared to like everything else I have, like indie makeup and everything. There's just no comparison. So definitely I usually pair this with other palettes. Like the next one, or I've only used this twice, but with Melt palettes, I pair them with other palettes, and I plan on pairing it with this next palette. But yeah, so you get these blushy tones, and I feel like, you know, the blushy tones and everything are great for spring. But the Love palette from Natasha Denona, I feel like obviously it's a Valentine's palette. Like most people think of Valentine's when they see this palette, but I feel like it's also great for just springtime with the pinks. And then so the shimmers I feel like would pair well with the Melt palette. But let me open them. But I'm hoping you can see what I see, and I'm sorry if there's like glare and stuff. I just feel like these would pair beautifully together. And this one, so my Love palette, this shade, and this shade are not original. My Love palette fell and broke. So some of the shades broke, and I had to like franken those. But I try to get them as close as to the original shades as possible. But yeah, so you have this like cream to powder purple shade, and it's lighter than what it looks like in the pan, so it's kind of like a lavender shade. And you have these blush tones, these pinky tones. This is a great shimmer shade. It's like a purpley pink shimmer shade, and I love this Love palette. I just love this palette. So I will be pulling it out this spring, hopefully. I feel like I am very ambitious with my palettes that I want to use this spring, since we only have a couple months left. But yeah, I just have so many palettes that I want to use more, and just like not enough time. But this is definitely one I'm hoping I can get around to using this spring. So those are all of the palettes that I wanted to share with you. I hope that this encourages you to shop your own stash and pick out your spring makeup if that's something you like doing. I know not everybody is a seasonal makeup wearer, and that's fine. I just love talking about eyeshadow palettes in general, and I like switching my makeup up for spring. It's just something fun for me to do. But yeah, let me know if you have any of these palettes, what your spring palettes that you're excited to use, what palettes you're excited to use this spring. If you're a seasonal makeup wearer, or just kind of wear whatever you want, whenever type of makeup wearer, let me know in the comments. Thank you so much for watching. I hope that you enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up. Please subscribe if you haven't subscribed, and I will see you in the next video. Bye!